welcome to the, I don't know what edition this is, but it's the New Year's Eve edition. December 31st, 2019 is today, so we'll call it the last of this year. And hopefully we'll have more for the new year. And by the way, happy holiday, Merry Christmas, everybody. And hope everybody has a safe new year. We'll go ahead and say that now. Got several questions, so we'll get right to it. Here, okay, on a little, I call it a lighter note, may not be to you, but why is Engine 2.8 still a mandatory four-man company after having a ladder go in service there? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to have the fourth man at a single engine company somewhere in the city?
Yeah, I think the concept is certainly there, and when you look at the resource allocation, that was the original plan, was that we would try and make sure we staffed all those single engine companies on the perimeters first. When you look at Ladder 2.8 going in, the ultimate goal was for Ladder 2.8 to end up on the station. Fire station is going to be built on Mingo later on. So I think we have staffed all of those stations on the perimeters, the singles company stations. And when we looked at what was presented to ISO, we still needed those folks down south to get our fire function or our fire analysis met for what we needed to do down there. So that's why they're there. But I think it certainly is a good question. I was looking at the resource allocation study earlier. Chief Clark is obviously off today, but I'm going to visit with him Thursday and see if that's something that to make sure that we've covered all those single company stations on the perimeter to make sure they are. But it's my understanding that they're already covered at this point.
Okay. Well, I printed that one twice. Imagine that. I made a mistake. Mark that one down. Time, date. So, 2 pages. My goodness, it's the same one again. No. Would you consider numbering a reserve as Engine 1? We are probably the only department in America without an Engine 1, Station 1. Bring back the original.
I tell you, I don't disagree. It's disappointing. We probably are the only fire department in the country that don't have a Station 1 or an Engine 1. And that's one of those things that nobody on the job right now certainly was involved in when any of those decisions were made. But I had someone come to me recently to talk about maybe numbering the Assistant Chief's office Station 1. So we at least have a Station 1 again, which I'm not opposed to that either. But it's immaterial to me what we number the stations or the trucks if somebody wants to number one.
Or 66.
Well, yeah, that's another one. To do those types of things. I don't, if that's what people want to do and the majority of the job wants to do something like that, I don't have issue with it. I kind of like the idea.
How would we bring something like that forward?
Well, first of all, I think you have to use the rationale. So how are you going to number a station or an engine 1 if it's going in something other than Station 1? So I think we have to decide what that's going to look like, because then how are you going to do all the other corresponding numbers? Are you going to assign a different number?
Engine 1 on the side of 640.
I'm okay with that.
Station 1, Engine 1.
And you can take the credit or the blame.
Yeah. All right, we beat that enough, I hope. Wow, he put his name on this. We'll read it first. He's a fairly new guy, so.
Okay.
Has any thought been put into the possibility of duty shorts during the summer months? This is not the summer months, but this is what he's thinking of. Meaning good quality cargo style shorts to bridge the gap between duty pants and sweat short. As we know, summer days, sometimes shorts would be preferred and we would still keep a professional appearance. What's your thoughts on shorts?
Well, we've had this discussion with the union and talking to President Nance. I think we kind of went back and forth, and there was a group that met for some time to talk about first if we did wear shorts, and then what the shorts would look like. And from that, there was never a hard decision made about whether we should or shouldn't. And I think some of the obvious concerns came out. First of all, the pros were the obvious things. It's cooler in the summer and other things of that nature. Some of the negatives were people were concerned about looking professional. Would we wear them all together at the same time? Would we wear them at the proper event, whether we should or not? All these discussions were had with the group, but they never did come back, certainly to me, and say, hey, this is what we want or we don't want. It was just kind of left out there. We're still having some discussion, and I've not heard any more than that. But I personally had some concerns with it being in shorts, but I was going to go with whatever that group decided, and they never came out with any.
Was that back in the LMC days, Labor Management Committees?
No, this has been within the last 12 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought we'd had a discussion about it. This does not represent the views of the administration, or I personally sometimes miss the LMC because I think it did solve issues like that, like the numbering of the trucks or the state, things that I don't want to say are not important issues, but not necessarily departmental groundbreaking things. I think the LMC worked good. It let the administration know where the job thought was on things like shorts or numbering of fire truck or whatever. So I kind of miss that.
I do too, and I think the concept of the LMC was certainly that you got some folks from the union and the administration in the same room to have those discussions as a group to push for whatever the issue was, good or bad. But in this case, there was a group, I believe, this past summer that had met and discussed it. But I'm not aware of anything that ever came out on it.
No, I have my thoughts on little shorts that I could wear, but we'll skip them. I hope it's not mandatory that we wear certain shorts if we did decide to go with it. I think that was all from Dave Heffernan. Sorry to give that name out, but I'm concerned with the shorts. They probably wear them in New York or wherever it is he's from.
I don't know.
2 questions this says. First, when is management going to say enough is enough and fix or overhaul the ESO system to stop making us do repeated work fixing incomplete/missing runs that are not missing or incomplete? Additionally, all the while preaching to us how important this documentation is, but yet it's a system that forces us to make things up or provide info we don't have in order to get an incident report to validate and lock, only to come up incomplete anyways. That's the end of that question. That's a long one.
Well, I think it's also been a long issue. When this first came up, I think a couple years ago, when I really became aware of the frustration folks were having, I sat down at a computer and they gave me a run to put in, and I put the run in and did everything, and they showed me where you're having to do the 2-run thing and the thing that they're talking about. And we didn't have any issues at that time. I didn't have any issues with what was going on, and I understood what they were saying. But I've not heard much about this lately, so I was just under the assumption that maybe things had gotten better or fixed, and I don't know if Joe can elaborate if things are still that way, but if they're still becoming an issue, we're going to have to get on it and fix it, because this has been going on long enough. If we're still having the same issue with incomplete incidents or incidents getting lost, to try and resolve this is not acceptable.
This is, to me, a good example also. I know some of you out there are concerned about anonymity on these questions, and getting on your bandwagon about this for just a second. When we know who the question comes from, there could actually be some discussion between the fire chief if he has a question or wants to ask a question of you about this topic. It's good to know who it came from so that he can communicate. I assume you're still open door policy and would discuss things with individuals.
And I'm glad you said that. I'd like to take a step further, because we did have some issues in the past where folks were going on runs that they didn't think we needed to go on. And I asked them to email me the data on the run, when it happened, what you were going on, all that. And some folks did that. And when I have that information, I can go directly to 911, and in this case, Chief Baker, and talk about why we're going on these runs. We took some of those before and presented them to Dr. Goodlow and said, this is not practical, we shouldn't be doing this. So if this is still the case with ESO, I need folks to send it up the chain of command, and whatever you do, make sure you get an email to me. I want to know if these things are still occurring, and if they are, we've got to fix them, whatever that looks like. Because we should, obviously this person, you can tell their frustration by what they've written, and that's just not acceptable. We're better than that, and I don't want the folks to continue to beat their heads on the wall. But if you have these issues, please email me. Make sure you let everybody in the chain of command know as well. We don't want to go outside that, but please loop me in on those emails if you're still having these issues, so that we can address these things. And that's disappointing to hear.
Okay, second, in this question, this is long, so bear with me. In your groupings, I'll try to phrase this as me and you. In your groupings, you mentioned something to the effect that the budget had to be looked at more like a business after the city continues to request TFD to cut the budget. It's pretty consistent that most of our issues or struggles as a department are directly related to money. Has management ever considered taking a hard look at our call volume as the root of all that drives that problem? Have we looked at overhauling our dispatch protocols for everything, not just EMS, to be more efficient? Has it been looked at with the same level of seriousness that our budget issues dictate? I could elaborate a lot more, but as a quick point of reference, in just one area, apparatus wear/collisions, it was said we have improved from 5 to 2.5 apparatus collisions per month, but we really need to continue to try and improve because it's really hurting us financially and logistically. Have you done the math on that? When you average 60,000 calls per year, that 2.5 number is 0.0005% of our calls.
So I'll try to start at the beginning of that question, and that's accurate. Most of our issues are either directly related or at least indirectly related to finance when it comes to trucks or whatever that may be. It's all about the money in the end. Be mindful that we ask for a budget and we submit our budget, and then that gets approved by the mayor and the council. In this particular case, when they're talking about some of the financial issues that we have and trying to run this a little bit different when it comes to EMS calls. In 2012, Dr. Goodloe pushed some protocols that he wanted us to go to. And actually, it was going to be in 2 phases. We got the first one handed to us pretty much without any input from us, only to have a second phase that we put a stop to that said we can't do that. It was going to cause, I think, about another 14,000 runs a year. But in the end, when you talk about whether it's EMS protocols, and I think this said other protocols as well, the best people to know what those protocols should look like when it comes to EMS, obviously EMS people, when it comes to protocols for the type of run you're responding to, and I assume they're talking about the number of trucks that respond to a call, I think those things really have to come from field operations because they're the ones who know that. So if you remember years ago, prior to 2012, we cut down some of our Class A assignments and other assignments about how many trucks need to go to what type of run. That came from field operations. And so when we look at things like that, I think it's very important for people to tell us, the field folks, that we're making a lot of calls, we're making a lot of runs to these business alarms, for example, and maybe we don't need to send as many trucks. Maybe we just send an engine on a particular call or an engine and 2 ladders. That stuff really needs to come from field ops because they do it every day, and they need to inform those within the chain of command if there is some type of protocol that we need to change to influence that. So I think it's a very good point. It's something that we need to look at, and we've done it in the past when we've changed some of our run assignments based upon what the real need was.
Okie dokie. I think that covered it. Next question.
I would like to, I want to say one more thing about, because they mentioned, the last part of that mentioned collisions. You know, the part about the collisions, the most important thing is that we keep our people safe. It's not as much about the money or not having enough reserve trucks or whatever that may be. The issue that we have with collisions is we've got to be very careful and be very adamant about having, try and minimize the number of preventable collisions. Because when you do that, or if you don't do that, you're going to put firefighters at risk and you're going to put citizens at risk. And so when we put emphasis on trying to reduce those, that's what we're talking about. We just want to try and reduce injuries or possible injuries to people when there is a collision. I think we've been very lucky over the past several years. When you look at the number of calls that we make and the job that our folks do, I think we're doing a really good job on that aspect, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't always try to prevent. The ultimate goal would be that we could have a zero each month, and if that would be the case, then that would be really nice. But how practical is that? I think it really comes down to those that are preventable versus those that are not.
I had another thought, but I don't. They're saying that's 10,000ths of our calls. You average 60,000 calls per year. 2.5 collisions per month. 5 from 5. So we've cut them in half over in
Right.
What was that? A 1 year period? I assume.
I don't know what they reference.
Improved from 5. It was said that we have improved from 5 to 2.5 per month. Anyway, all right, enough said on that. If you have more questions, we'll address it at a different time. Word this how you need to. I like that. Thank you, Clayton Ayers. This is obviously his question. I'll throw him under the bus. Fire garage. What is the administration's stand on having some sort of oversight over the fire garage and them being held accountable? I personally have had multiple instances where the mechanic has shown up to repair something or not, states I'll have to order parts, and they are never heard from again. The other famous line is, we have no reserves for you to trade out. I understand that, but honestly, most of these repairs could be done in the station in 1 to 2 hours, which is less time than we are out of service for training. Currently, Engine 5 is waiting on an air dryer, heat exchanger, rear brakes, Class A foam hose broken, and rear tires. Example, replace the heat exchanger. We could stop putting 5 gallons of antifreeze in every few shifts and lessen the risk of blowing an engine. Per a mechanic I spoke with in the shop, Engine 5 has not had a PM in over 2 years.
Yeah, again, these are issues that I would like to know about when they occur, and they're on long-standing, such as the one that Clay's mentioning there. I think our reserve fleet is going to get better. We've got 2 trucks coming in later this month, and then we'll have 5 more come in. I think early in the spring. It's going to help our reserve inventory. When it comes to his original question, though, when you're talking about the garage, it's one of the things that I've asked to try and turn back over to the fire department. I know what it was like when we had the garage ourselves. Nothing against the people down there, but it seemed like the Spirit Decor was better when they were part of the fire department. I think they felt better about being part of the fire department. Again, has nothing to do with the quality of the people down there, but there is some frustrations when folks do come out there and they're not getting their things taken care of.
It says, does Driscoll, but I'll point it to you. Do you have an exact date when you're retiring? The majority of the job wants to know. Maybe he did a, survey monkey or something. I didn't get to answer it, but anyway, you got an exact date you're retiring?
I've got some dates in my head. There's still, I've got some concerns about Fire Station 33. It was supposed to be started last fall. It wasn't, and I really tried to stay on engineering about getting that station started. It was originally approved back in 2006, and here we are as of tomorrow.
13 years later.
Right, and it's still not got off the ground.
14 years later.
So I really want to see that thing get started and continue to push to make that happen. I don't have any plans of staying until the station gets built. So
we might have a bunch of firemen show up and start working on it.
That would be great. I think the city would
By golly, I hear hammers as we speak.
No, I think there are some dates. For me, I don't. I would really like to see that get done. I think there's a FD07 position that's going to be filled probably in late January, and I think there's some other things that need to occur as far as discussions that I've had with the mayor about the next fire chief, who that's going to be, and if he has some idea of people that he wants in certain positions to get them ready. And I'm, at that point when that happens and we can get that fire station started, I think it's going to be time to.
What you just said perked up my ears. we have a selection process. For example, the FT07 coming up, but then you just said if the mayor has ideas, I don't want to put words in your mouth, ideas of who he would want in certain positions. How does he have a role in that or a decision in that?
Well, the fact that I'm going to be leaving, fairly soon,
Right.
I think it's going to be very important. If he has somebody selected in his mind that he wants for fire chief, I would want to put that person in a position where they're going to start getting their feet really wet now, so that when they do get the position that they're ready. He's given me absolutely no indication of any of that. However, I just want to be honest and say any of those selections need to be, I want to make sure he's aware of those as well. So
What are the requirements on our department? Do you know off the top of your head?
For the fire chief?
For fire chief.
You just have to have 10 years of service with the Tulsa Fire Department.
Right, but it is within. It's not. We don't select fire chief from outside agencies.
Doesn't
Correct?
say that. It says you will have 10 years
Service with the Tulsa Fire Department.
That's correct.
But rank is not a consideration.
No.
Just the years of service with the Tulsa Fire Department.
Right, and you have
That's
to live
just
in the city.
for myself. I might be running for that position. I have 10 years. Let's see. That's all for that one. The last episode, they're calling it the marijuana episode, was informative and interesting. Best of luck on the next episode. So, this is pretty serious, though. Captain Crosland's funeral, we gathered in the lobby to honor the family as they walked into the sanctuary. This was a somber and moving tribute that I'm sure the family will never forget. We were asked to salute as they walked in. Myself, and I'm sure many others with no military background, have never been instructed on a proper salute. Perhaps we could get a member of the Honor Guard to put out a target solution video. Also, what is the proper etiquette of wearing the optional dress uniform hat? At the funeral, some had it on inside the church and some did not. In closing, I'd like to thank the Honor Guard for the tremendous job they do. If you have ever witnessed another department's Honor Guard, you know how truly professional and exceptional the Tulsa Fire Department's Honor Guard is. And this was, he signed it proudly, John Kofferman from Station 51.
Well, first of all, I echo what he said about the Honor Guard. We're very proud of what they do and the way they make this department look when they go to funerals and take care of others' funerals as well. They do an outstanding job. I have the same dilemma that he had at that time. And this is just my personal preference, I was just always taught don't wear a hat inside. However, I've been told that doesn't, that's not the same for Honor Guard folks, that they are to wear their hats. So I don't know. I do think it would be good to get someone like Nick Swangston to talk to us, because I understand the different service of branch salute differently. I don't know what the proper way to salute. And I think getting somebody like Nick or someone within the Honor Guard to tell us when we should and when we shouldn't wear our hats, and if we are to salute, when we should and how we should do that would be a good idea. And then I think we can put it out. I think if we all knew that, the folks who haven't been in the military before will certainly feel better about what we're supposed to do, because it was a little bit uncomfortable for me because I didn't know what we were supposed to do. I don't think the family noticed that. I think they still saw the respect that was shown for Dave. But in the end, I think we all have an expectation that we all want to be the best and look the best when we do that, and be in unison when we do those things. So I'll get in touch with Nick Swangston or somebody within that Honor Guard and see if they can educate us on what's proper etiquette.
I do know from the training standpoint, we've tried to introduce that. We do teach cadets flag etiquette, which is a very standardized subject. We teach them flag etiquette, how to fold, how to honor, how to raise flags, put flags at half staff. But I've seen training staff try to teach salute, how when to wear your cover or hat. And it's what you said. It seems to me maybe there's a difference from branch to branch, because I've seen that being out there for years. I've seen it presented different ways by different training staff officers from different branches of the military. So I don't know if they've forgotten over the years, so it's a little bit different, or if it is actually different from branch to branch of the service as far as salutes or protocol for cover or hats, indoor, outdoor. So anyway, something to look into.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And
I think we could have our own policy as well, though, if there's different protocols for the different branches.
Yeah,
I think maybe if we, back to the LMC, if we had a committee that would come up with a policy and say this is what we do as Tulsa Fire Department,
right. I agree.
regardless of whether it's Army, Air Force, Navy, or whatever. So
Good question.
appreciate that question from John, and be looked into.
And be mindful that we have an FDO 7 exam coming up, I believe January 23rd, and so depending upon the results of that, could or could not expire
that list.
Yeah.
We're also at where on the FDO 3 and 2?
I don't have that number.
It's getting
keeps
close.
that. Yeah, it is
Very
getting
close.
close.
And again, depending on how this pans out, could obviously make them closer, both of those,
yeah,
to expiring. So those interested in studying, get after it.
yeah, I would say get after it, because we're hearing other people that are probably going to be leaving in the spring, and obviously that will impact those lists. So yeah, I wouldn't, especially on this job, not to wait till the last minute.
Well, and I've already had some calls and questions about changes in the study material. I mean, I'm sitting right here saying better get after it. Do you foresee any changes in study material for the next exam for any of those? 2, 3, or 5?
For me, I'm just one of 7 on the personnel committee, but I'm not an advocate for changing material. When you get this close to list expiring, I just think it's a bad idea. I think it sends the wrong message to those people who are studying. They've got enough to worry about and stress about, and I'm not going to advocate for anything to change. We'll get a new personnel committee in February, and that will be one of the first things that they have to do is determine what the list would be. For me, at this point, I know that there were some things that have been looked at most recently about changing, but I'm not going to be an advocate come February to be changing anything.
Awesome. Next question. Sorry, had to get my own information, questions answered there. Well, speaking of the training staff, here's a question from me. Just a comment, not necessarily going to say that this was Brock Clark. Oh, sorry, Brock, that wrote this question. Training staff and several companies spent a week testing battery-operated rescue tools. Once the testing was complete, 2 of the manufacturers tied for the top tools for TFD. This information was given to the command staff for specifications to be written. What is the next step? Is the department moving forward in getting battery tools for the job? I know that the training staff and the companies that tested the equipment did a lot of work to get the evaluation complete.
Yes, they did, and we appreciate the work that they put forth to get the stuff that they want. I know in having discussions with Chief Mallory, I believe I think he's going to put it out for bid in February, or we would expect the bids to come back in February. I don't remember which one of those is accurate, but I know that the particular NFPA standard changed a little bit that falls under, that addresses battery-powered stuff, JAWS. And so we wanted to make sure the one that we were looking at was going to still meet that. And we are going to get them. I think that's a huge value to get them. We spent a lot of time. Our folks were very happy with them. And we should be getting them here pretty soon, at least get them ordered real soon.
Okay. All right. Oh, I thought it was the last, but it's not. All right. Crusher, here's a couple of questions. Blah, blah, blah. What's the story with Aflac and now other supplemental insurance companies soliciting sales at the fire stations directly? Are these programs supported, subsidized, or otherwise an extension of the Health and Welfare Trust? If so, wouldn't district groupings or an in-service be a better means to reach the field, much like we are doing with Fidelity, or to nationwide change? If these companies are not an extension or a product of the efforts of the Health and Welfare Trust, why are we allowing solicitation at the City of Tulsa facilities? In other words, fire stations.
I'm not aware of if they're affiliated with our insurance or not, but we've not given anyone the approval to go out and solicit the fire stations. We'll get those from time to time, folks who want to go out there, and typically all we'll do is either give them their address. If it's something like, the Red Cross or one of those, if there's something that they're just wanting to inform the members about something, we don't have issue with that, but we don't allow this or any other type of solicitation at any of the fire stations. So this is news to me that somebody's going out there and doing that. And if it occurs, much like the ESO and the fire trucks issues, folks need to let us know as soon as possible so that we can get it stopped.
Secondly, I'm a huge proponent of the body politic having a voice. In the recent survey on apparatus color was a beautiful opportunity for the job to speak on something that may be simple but seem simple but means much to a number of members. Sadly, though, knowing we see roughly 450 votes for contracts and other issues that directly impact the membership, how much validity will a survey have that has over 100 more responses? We kind of talked about this once. Than we have authorized positions on the department. 856 responses from a 742 member department. Given other votes and surveys as a comparison basis, is potentially up to 400 or more repeat ballots truly a reflection of this proud department, or simply a disgusting display of gamesmanship?
Yeah, got an opinion there, didn't we?
That's quite a story.
I don't know. Maybe we were just really thorough and had an extra 100 votes in there. The reason that we put that out the way it is disappointing, because we know we've only got so many members and that we have that many people. And I don't know, maybe it was one person that did it that many times, but whatever it may be, we put it out there just because we wanted to know a true opinion of everyone. And we sent it to the fire stations so that people could get on the one at the fire station and keep voting for all three shifts. I don't know that we'll do like that for the next time that we do something. I suspect going forward we'll probably send it to everyone's email so that you can only vote once. The problem with that is we know that while we want everybody to read their email, the reality is we don't know that everyone is reading their email. However, going forward, I think the SurveyMonkey is a very good tool to get folks' opinion on something like this. And so in the future, we're going to be forced to just send it to their email, and they'll have to go to their email and answer the survey. So I think it was a good opportunity to try and get proper feedback, but it was disappointing that we had over 100 more answer than we have on the job.
I don't know what software the local uses. I know we have now the technical capability to do online voting. We're still very reluctant. Everybody thinks there's ways to cheat it, and whatever kind of ways there would be, I don't know, but there is software out there that allows online voting for one time.
Right.
For each member. I don't know if they use an ID number or how it works, but I know the software is out there, and it's the technology is better than SurveyMonkey is available. I don't know if that's something the city could look into or would even entertain the notion of doing.
I don't know. I know that the mayor has his survey. I don't know what they use to get that, get that in. Maybe that's something that we can look at, but
I think that's email based. I don't know.
And if it is, that's what we're going to be forced to go with for a while, just so that each person will.
And I think that's what the locals does, is all those that have signed up. Of course, there's the conspiracy theory that, well, I give you my password and you sign in and you get to vote twice. And I think there's always would be some of that, but the idea of it being hundreds is probably not realistic. I would think there might be a couple go on. But to me, this does not reflect the opinion of the blah, blah, blah. I've carried the ballot box for several years to all the stations on elections with the ballot box, which you would think is very accurate, very up and up. But when a young guy takes his ballot and says, "Hey, Cap, how should I vote?" That captain theoretically gets 2 votes.
Yeah.
Because he tells him and he marks exactly who the captain says or who his friend says. So there's no perfect way to do it. Even our elections, obviously, for our president of the United States is controversial, but won't get into that. How many more embarrassing incidents? How we end on a grand finale here. How many more embarrassing incidents will the fire chief put the department in before he retires? Does he still feel like he can do whatever he wants when he wants? We thought the $225,000 life coach the city spent on trying to teach leadership was supposed to help him be somewhat of a leader and make better decisions. Wow, maybe I should have read that one first. I'm sorry. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
No, I want to address it if
Okay.
someone feels that way.
Okay.
You know, first of all, we didn't spend that kind of money on that, but there was a lot of insight that I certainly learned with Ellen going around and myself, the department, and folks out there and what was going on. And I think we have made some pretty good improvements since that time to make things better for everyone. When you talk about embarrassing moments, I'm not sure exactly what that person's referring to, and I don't know if there's a name that we can to talk to about it. But I tell you this: I take this job very personal, and I would like to think that we're pretty inclusive in the decisions that we make. Anything from, obviously, when you have discipline issues, everything is ran through city legal to make sure that it's a viable case and it's people on the outside looking in. I think when we hire people, unlike what we've done in the past, now there's about anywhere from 8 to 12 people to come in and give their advice on who we're hiring. When we make other decisions based upon the color of the truck that we want or the type of truck that we want, we send people up, and we've never done that before to the extent that we're doing it today. I would like to think that there's a lot of good things that were going on within this department, and it would never be my go to ever embarrass myself or the department on any decisions that are made. It's to make firefighters safer and make the job better. Make mistakes? Absolutely. I'm going to make mistakes like the other people, but when I do, I'll admit to them and own up to them, but it would never be my go to embarrass myself or this job in any way at all. So I'm disappointed that someone feels that way, but if I've offended them or embarrassed them in some way, I apologize about that. I tell you, I've told this to people before, and I had few people who will take me up on it. If there's ever someone that feels like I've done something wrong or embarrassed the job, I would appreciate if they would at least just come to the office and shut the door and let's just talk about it. I suspect most of the time I'll have some insight to what decision was made and why, and might give them a little bit more understanding about what's going on, rather than for people to form their opinions based what was being discussed at the fire station table. I worked out there for well over 20 years, and I know that the vast majority of the discussions that happen at the table are inaccurate. There's just enough thread of truth in those things, though, that people really wonder from there. And if anybody on this job, of those 742 members, of those 800 and some members, if any of them ever have some concerns about anything that I'm doing, I wish they would invite me to the station or come down to the office and let's shut the door and let's just talk about it and I want them to tell me where I've done wrong and what they think, that I can do better. And I'm open to hear that because I'm no different than anybody else out there. I love this job just like everybody else does out there, and I would never want to embarrass the job or any of them.
Well, and that being said, my disclaimer too is I get a little frustrated when I get phone calls or read some of these questions and things, because I also know as I try to enter rosters as management skills, your quarterly, we call them, I put them in as fire chief updates.
Right.
And I think everybody on the job has an opportunity, if not this quarter, another quarter, or another time, where you have an open forum. Basically, I know you have issues that you want to discuss.
Sure.
But I think that is an opportunity as well. If you think something's needing to be addressed to the fire chief and you don't want to do it behind a closed door, there's you a forum. There's you a group of people. If that makes you feel more bold to put your name out there or raise your hand and ask a question of you or a discussion issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's an open forum opportunity is
Absolutely.
your groupings.
Whether we do it in my office or at the fire station or in those groupings, it's immaterial to me where we do it at. We just don't want to do it in public.
Right.
But if there's things that are going on that you're concerned about, or you're wondering why we're doing the things that we are, please contact myself or somebody here at headquarters. Will come visit with you or whatever. We want you to understand what's going on so that you're not frustrated with some of these issues. And I don't have good answers to all these things, the ESO, the fire trucks, the garage, but we will continue to work on those things and try and get some good answers to those things, because I don't want people frustrated or disappointed. So please continue to let us know if you would.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. Try to do another show. We're going to try to stick to quarterly, but it gets very tough. Either I'm gone, you're gone. But the groupings, as I mentioned, is another way to get your management skills. Plus, address the fire chief if you have some issues, and stay in the know. And other than that, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New
Merry
Year
Christmas to everybody. It's past, I know, but it was hopefully a good one for you. And hopefully the new year will be an eventful and a pleasure. So, thanks for tuning in. If you guys stay safe, and if you have any other questions, you can still send them in. We'll put them on the next show or episode, or send them straight to the fire chief for an address if that's what you feel like you need to do. Other than that, thank you. Have a safe day.
Yeah,
Safe ship.
thank you. Have a Happy New Year.